And I just want to say in conclusion, before we could turn to the question time, that a number of you have said, oh, you've had a thankless job, and my gosh, it must so tough, and I know such a pain and so difficult. It's a lot of fun. Getting around this country, talking to people, engaging with Canadians, it's a very, very encouraging and happy experience. I commend it to anyone. I think it's important for us to recognize that we're engaged in important work because Canadians deserve better than they've got, and, thank you, and they're not going to get better with a simplistic ideological alternative from the NDP. The final thing I want to say to all of you is this. I've told you that we can't take prosperity for granted, and we can't take social justice for granted, and we can't take sustainability for granted, and we can't take democracy for granted. The last thing I want to say to all of you, in light of the election in Quebec, in light of what I feel I know about this country, is we can't take Canada for granted. And I think our great leaders over the last 100 years have recognized that. So when the New Democratic Party says, well, as one of its members in the House of Commons said, well, the flag is just a decoration, so why would we worry about that? And when the party passes a resolution in Quebec called the Sherbrooke Declaration that says, well, the next referendum will be decided by the Quebec government on its own, and whatever question they put to people, if that question gets support of 50% of the population plus one, that's the end of the country. I say to you, this is not the way you keep a country together. You keep a country together by being proud of the things that we value. The flag is not a decoration. The flag is a symbol of what we have built together as a country for 145 years. And we have a Clarity Act, and we have laws in place that we put in place precisely because we've learned from our experience that you don't let the people who want to tear down this country tell you what the rules of the game are. And you don't pander to those people by saying, oh, we're gonna just give you the field and everything will be okay. That's not the way you govern this country. And I think the Liberal Party has to show some fiber and determination in presenting to Canadians a very clear vision of what we believe it's going to take to keep this country together, the things we need to do together to make it a better place, the confidence we need to bring. Et c'est comme ça que nous allons bâtir un pays. Mais un pays comme le Canada, c'est quelque chose que nous ne pouvons pas prendre pour acquis. Ni la prospérité, ni la justice sociale, ni la durabilité, ni la démocratie elle-même, ni l'existence du pays. Ce sont des choses qui sont créées par des gens qui croient dans les possibilités de l'aventure humaine. So what I'd like to do now is give people an opportunity to ask questions. I know that someone, I'm told, on good instructions, has a microphone at the back. Right here, Ian has a microphone at the front. Get yourself to the back, Ian. I'm only kidding. If you have a question you'd like to ask, Ian has the roving microphone and he can give it to you. Well, it actually, let's look at the Nexen deal in exactly what it is. The oil company in which the Chinese government has an interest is owned 65% by the Chinese government and is publicly traded on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. Nexen, and I met with the company and with Nexen 2 days ago, and we've done quite a lot of research into this. Nexen is a company that has interests in the North Sea, it has interests in Yemen, it has interests in Colombia, it has interests in the oil sands. It's an international company that's based in Canada. It has about 1% of Canadian production out of the oil sands, not 20%, but 1%. And it has about 3% of the reserves in the oil sands. So, those are the facts as I understand them. I think we need to have a very clear set of rules as a country about what are the rules going to be with respect to major new investments in the natural resources of the country. And I think we need to have very clear criteria. I think we need to have very clear rules. And I think those rules need to be set publicly. And I don't think we should be giving a blank check to anyone who wants to look at purchasing resource-based companies that are doing business in Alberta or elsewhere. But let me also say, I also don't believe that we as liberals should say that because a company comes from China, we don't want it to invest in our country, although we're quite happy to have 70% of our other companies owned by the United States and other places. I think we have to understand we're a country in the world. We want to do business in China. So here's some practical questions that I would have. How much control are Canadians going to have of Nexen? Because the Chinese oil company says it's going to buy Nexen and then leave Nexen in place as a company. So you say, well, how much control do Canadians have over Nexen? And that's a practical question. How many places on the board of directors are you prepared to leave for Canadians? What kind of role are Canadians going to play in the management of the big mother company that's traded in Hong Kong and in New York? Then the question becomes, what other conditions are you prepared to give us with respect to the business that we'd like to do in China? There are Canadian companies who would like to invest in parts of the Chinese economy, and they're told by the Chinese, sorry, you can't engage in those. You can't buy those. You can engage in a partnership with us, but you can't buy the company. So I think at some point you have to say, well, if it's sauce for the goose, it's sauce for the gander. How are we going to ensure that these rules are reciprocal? So my judgment is you don't just willy-nilly say, we're against it, which is what the NDP says, because there isn't a trade deal in the world that they like, and there isn't a foreign investment that they end up thinking is a good idea. And then you've got to say, but what really is going to ensure that there is a real net benefit for Canada? And I think those are the standards that we have to apply, and I think we have to apply them in a very tough-minded way. Part of the problem is that the media, and I know when I say this, everybody gets edgy. I'm not criticizing the media. I'm just saying the culture of the media has taken on a lot of the air of the culture of politics, which is very negative. And, it's like trash talk, right? They call trash radio, trash talk. Talk shows are, increasingly kind of driven by the need to be negative and the need to be critical and the need to make fun of the people who are calling in. And all I can say is the way we deal with that, it seems to me, is to understand that we have lots of ways of reaching people. We have lots of ways now through social media, through other means of communication, of reaching out directly to people and talking to them. And there are going to be a lot of people in the way who are going to try to point one way or the other, saying this is how you should go and this is what you should do. But I just think the one thing that gives me confidence, and I can't take sides in the leadership race, and I appreciate the very nice things that you've said about me. I was hoping my wife was taking notes as you were talking. But it seems to me that what we have to do in the Liberal Party is just have the confidence that we can actually talk to people directly. And as the leadership campaign emerges and as people come forward, I think we'll have a chance to really talk to people. And we will have a lot of very capable candidates coming forward and talking to people, and I think it's going to stand us in good stead. But there's nothing I can do about we're always going to have some criticisms in the newspaper. Somebody once told me this, and I couldn't believe it was true, but I did some research and I discovered that it was. How many newspapers do you think endorsed Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1936? The answer is 0. 0. 0. And it's important to remember that people have a way of getting beyond the editorial writers and the experts and the pundits and all the other folks who tell you what to think. You've got to start talking to people themselves about what they think and really engaging the public about those issues.